All right, hey, I'm gonna show you how to do some simple soldering mods here. This is what I call the Hammerhead Distortion Mod version 1. And I've returned the amp to stock condition just to show you what we're gonna do. And we're gonna be modifying these two items right here. That's a cap C8 and a resistor R3. Then we're also going to just be modifying one little resistor back here, that one right there, which is R9. We're going to leave the stock capacitor over there in that circuit. So 3 items, and I'm going to try to show you how to do it fairly easily if you don't have too many fancy tools. I mean, I got a nice soldering iron here. I got my parts ready to go. You know, I got a different capacitor. That's actually a real nice Mojo Town Dijon 68 nanofarad capacitor that I'm going to use to replace this one. And then I got a couple resistors. That's my 2.2K, 2K2 they call it, and that's the 3 reds. And I've always got a nice little chart right here by my fan that blows the bad solder fumes away. That shows me how to read these resistors, but I'm getting to the point now where I kind of know what they are. I thought I had a good 3.9K like that one, but I didn't. So I'm going to use this half watt. This came out of a kit of a whole bunch of resistors that you can get on Amazon, and they're kind of cheap Chinese crap. I guess it all is. But I use these for experimenting with, and they work just fine. So I'm going to use one of those. I've already checked both of these with my multimeter just to make sure that they're in the range. It's always a good idea to do that. First thing you want to do is trim your resistor leads to be the right length. I kind of line it up. You kind of get better at it with a little experience. And you know, you bend 90 degrees here on either end. I already know that's going to be kind of close, just from experience. All right, and maybe a little on the long side, but we're also going to bend this back to hide it under there a little bit. So by bending those a little bit, you're going to shorten the leads anyway. So let's go with that for now. We can always play with it once we got it in there. So a lot of people don't have a solder sucker. I have one. If you're going to be playing on amps, it's a great idea to get one of these. This is a Soldapult. I don't know. Not sure where I got it. Amazon or something. And basically, it's a spring-loaded thing. You push the handle in, and when the solder is hot and melted, you put this right on it. Try to get as much suction as you can, and you push the button, and it sucks the solder right out. It's great. But we're going to be able to do a couple of these things, these resistors, without, if we do it right, we don't need the solder sucker. We're going to just get the thing hot, get the joint hot, pull the existing one out, and then replace it with a new one. So whenever you're soldering and you're trying to melt stuff, you want to wet the tip first with a little solder. And that lets the temperature transfer a lot better. So you just get it, I'm going to hold it in here, and that's kind of a bit of a glob of solder. It's going to take a little bit to get it to melt out. But once it goes soft, then you grab the other one, the one you're taking out by the leads, and you just pull it out. You try to keep the rest of the stuff there. So that baby's half out already. Now let's go do the other end. I don't know if you can see this. Now there's little wires up here, and you're going to try to do this without touching the wires. If you touch the wires, you're going to burn them, and you know, it happens. It's not the end of the world if you do. Once again, wet the tip. Try to get an angle with your soldering iron where you're not going to burn anything that you don't want to. Wait for it to all melt. There it goes. You can actually see it. And try to get your thing in there. Oh, all right. So I pulled out. There's that. I want to put this back in if I can. There we go. Get back in there, jobber. All right. And now we're gonna pop the new 3.9 in there. This isn't the best resistor. It's got real, I mean, one way it's nice that it has real skinny leads. It makes it easy to jam them in with the other things, but they're also a little bit flexy, and they're kind of like a wet noodle sometimes when you're trying to push it in. All right, so we're gonna do this one again. And I'm gonna heat this up, and I'm just, when it gets hot, I'm gonna just try to push this in. There we go, get in there. Sometimes you have to feel around to find a spot that isn't already taken up. There we go. And then I just hold it there while the solder cures. Now we line up the other end, make sure our lead is a little long, so I can actually fix that right here. Gonna shorten it up, straighten her out. And I'm gonna trim that a little shorter too, yeah, that's better. So a good pair of clippers, very nice to have. And I'll trim that off. So we're gonna just try to do the same thing here. Gonna get it ready to go with my pliers. But I'm not gonna touch that down. I'm gonna wet my tip on my soldering iron, get this heated up. And I'm not gonna touch that down into it until it's all melted. Because if you do, it takes the heat away, especially with those big pliers on there. Now I'm feeling around for a hole for it. Trying to find a place. There it is. Soldering iron off. Done. All right. Now put that thing right down back in there where it belongs. And then I'll usually cap them off with a little extra solder. Nice. Do this one. All right, there we go. So there you go. You can change out resistors, capacitors, a lot of these things without sucking the solder out of the holes by using that method. Now, we're gonna do this one next. And this one we're gonna replace both the resistor and the capacitor. And I'm gonna show you the solder suck method, but you could use the same method we just used if you don't have a solder puller. Remember to wet my tip. Always a good idea. And we're gonna start pulling these things out. There it goes, it's melted. I'm just lifting this stuff out. There we go. There's one little more cap in there that I'm actually gonna probably leave. It's so small. Actually, I'll pull it out too. Yeah, mostly out. That way I can get my solder sucker. While this is hot, I get my solder sucker and I suck it right in there and go boom. Empty it out. Might do it a couple more times just to make sure I try to get it all out of there so I have more room to work with. Suck the bunch up. There we go. All right, now let's do the other side. I take this little ground wire right out of there. Nice and hot. That one went nice and easy. All right, so now I got this thing all cleared out. Now all I gotta do is just put it back together with all my new components. Put this baby right back in. And I find it's better if, it's actually better if you got wires. Like this wire's in tough shape. This is a tough one, it's big. And I'll sometimes take my soldering iron and try to melt this solder that's here and try to make this as small as I can. It's actually better if they're not tinned, but because this one's been in and out of there, it's tinned just from being in the hole and being soldered. And tinning it makes it a little fatter. If it was untinned, just the raw wire, it'd be a little easier to work with. I'm gonna make it smaller. It's still fairly big. And yeah, get that in there. That thing just takes up a shit ton of real estate though. Okay. I can put this wire in here for the ground that was there. Now our components. I've got my 2.2K resistor that I'm using. I need to get this one ready to go. And sometimes it's easier to do the small things last, like this resistor. It's got smaller leads than this nice Mojo Tone capacitor I'm putting in there. So, but this is so big, and when I put it in, it just takes a, there's no room to work. So I'm gonna put that one in last. Get these up here. All right, I'm gonna have to squeeze this in. It's running out of room in there already. There we go. And I'm gonna wanna move this off to the side a little bit to give me room for that capacitor. And now this big cap, which I've already had in there. It's gonna be tough to get it in up at this end. I just know it. We've already got 3 things in that hole, including that big fat wire. Now, right now, it's really tricky. It doesn't wanna go. That wire with the solder is taking up a lot of room. So one of the tricks you can do is you can heat this up. Once again, let's wet our tip. And let's heat this up, and that's gonna melt that solder in that wire and give me a little more room to play around here. There we go, nice. All right, see, that trick worked. And then this one's plenty of room. There we go, we got it sitting pretty. Make sure everything's good. And now we can go in and top it off with solder. A little preheat and get our solder in here. And the heat will suck it right down in that hole, down in the eyelet hole. I like to sometimes hold it down, then take the solder off, let it cool. That way you're making a good connection. And I don't know if you're gonna be able to see this other one, but I'm gonna be doing the same thing up here. Wet the tip. And we're done. All right, there's the Hammerhead Distortion Mod for the VHT Special 6 Ultra. 680 nanofarad capacitor here, 2.2 K resistor there, and a 3.9 K resistor right there, keeping the original stock capacitor.